But when you listen to my show, I don't wax philosophic about the 50s and 60s in baseball. It's just not who I am. I'm not interested in it. I didn't grow up in that culture. So I don't fall in love with stuff that's happening now. I fall in like with everything with an eye on getting better. That's my personality. I think Joy and I kind of share that. And so I look at the Warriors dynasty. It's the second best team I've ever seen to Michael Jordan's Bulls. But I look at him now and I think Steph is way too good to just linger with Golden State. His contract's up in a year. He's a free agent next summer. I mean, let's be honest. He was easily the best player on the floor. He's 33, and his skills will age really well. Shoot and ball handle, be smart. Lakers threw everything at him. Totally ineffective as the best NBA defensive team. Totally ineffective. Draymond Green now, 41 minutes, 2 points. He's a liability on the floor offensively. Andrew Wiggins, good, but way too expensive. Klay Thompson's back, hasn't played in 2 years. James Wiseman's a rookie center, lost several years from even being a potential star, so his timeline does not line up with Steph's. The Clippers right now are a good team that would die for a leader. Hello. LeBron James getting old. You think it's a coincidence in the last 2 years LeBron's buddy with Steph Curry? See him talking last night? See him talking all the time? LeBron throwing bouquets at Steph Curry. Didn't used to. LeBron was a Westbrook guy. Now LeBron's like, oh, that's the MVP easily. You think this is just random? Come on now. LeBron's working it every day of the year. He's the best off-ball player in the league. He's the best scorer. He's the best ball handler. He may be the smartest or second smartest player. He's a free agent. By the way, it's not all doom and gloom for Golden State. They could get a ton for him. You can get an all-star or two for him in several draft picks. But you look at the contracts next year between Klay, Draymond, Wiggins, and Steph, it's $139 million. You got to blow this team up. It's over. Marcus Thompson was on earlier this week. You can't live in the rearview mirror with the Warriors. It's over, and it's time to just dismantle this puppy.
We got to let go of that dynasty team for sure, right? This is post dynasty. This is Kobe after the Shaq Kobe years, right? And it's like you got to recreate yourself. I think that's what Steph is doing. You got to reinvent it. I think a lot of people are clamoring to, hey, they won 3 championships. They had all these all-stars. They've got to reinvent themselves. Because keep in mind, these dudes are 30 now.
It's funny. In the NFL, we're seeing teams do this all the time now. They're just like, all right, do over. Draft a guy. All right, we're done. And we're like, it almost always works. I mean, Jared Goff gets to a Super Bowl 2 years later. We're done with that. And we're like, all right. And they paid him a lot. They still owe Jared Goff some money. The NBA has always been the progressive league. Like there's an old saying in sports. The NBA thinks of it first. Baseball makes the most money off it, and the NFL gets it right. But the NBA thinks of it first. This is not baseball where they're stuck in the mud. They want to. I mean, when I talk NBA, I don't ever talk George Mikan. Michael Jordan's about as far back as I go, and he's the best player of all time, and he's still a relevant person in the NBA. He owns a team. So I just look at this team and I think it's done. And Steph is you don't want him to become Bradley Beal, where you're like, bro, what are you doing? And Steph's got a lot of titles in him. I mean, I'm watching last night. He was so far and away the best player on the floor, totally controlled the game. I mean, he is just there. I mean, and I don't think it's a coincidence that LeBron has become his biggest fan in the last 2 years. He wasn't early in his career. He used to kind of roll his eyes at Steph. Now he's like, oh, he's the best player in the world over there. Be a joy to play with it. What a player, Steph Curry. That's not a coincidence. But he may fit the Clippers better than the Lakers. And I'm not saying those are the only teams. Who wouldn't want Steph Curry? I mean, everybody wants Steph Curry. I mean, Phoenix would figure out a way to get him over there alongside Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Just bring him in. We'll figure it out. But what I don't want to see is athletes, because of tradition and loyalty, giving away championships. Steph's got like 4 left in him. He needs to be in 3 or 4 more finals here in the next 5 or 6 years. Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Haynes now joining us live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing, senior NBA insider, TNTs everywhere. Man is employed by a lot of people. That's a good sign. It was funny. I'm watching last night Steph, and I'm thinking to myself, he was the best player on the floor easily. His skills will age well. The Warriors have $140 million into 4 players. They got to blow this thing up. They don't. Wiseman's not on the same timeline as Steph. And I look at Steph and I think he's a free agent next summer. And I say this as a compliment. I don't want him to become Bradley Beal. This is an iconic, great player. He led the NBA in scoring. He could be the MVP. And I think, I don't want to see him part of a rebuild. That's not what I want to see. Your thoughts on if Steph Curry this time next year? Like, is it maybe time to just, hey, the dynasty was fun, let's start over for Steph?
Well, I think it all depends on how Klay Thompson comes back next season. I think the Warriors want to run it back. I know Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, they want to see what they have left in the tank with those 3 cornerstone players mixed in with the addition of Andrew Wiggins, who has been a good complementary piece with Steph this season. Probably played the best, overall he's had in his career on both ends of the floor. So with that being said, I think we're another year away from even talking about blowing it up. I think they still have a lot of ball left in them. And I think it's all going to be dependent on how Klay Thompson comes back. Can he come back and still be a force?
It's my takeaway on last night was a lot of teams would have folded at half. If you'd have told me, Chris, LeBron had his worst first half in the playoffs in years. Steph was on fire. They shot 44% on threes. AD didn't really show up until the 4th. Andrew Wiggins played well. Draymond was a terror on defense, and the Lakers won. I'd be like, oh, they had to make big adjustments with Andre Drummond. They had to rally the troops at halftime. I came out of that and I was like, that was an impressive win for the Lakers. What was your view on it?
Well, I think they realized that it would have been an utter embarrassment if they would have lost that game the other night. To be the defending champions, then to put themselves in position to where they're actually in the play-in game, and then to fall to a team that is a rival of LeBron James, it would have been an embarrassment. So I think pride finally got into them, at halftime, where they felt like they had to come back in the second half and get things in order. And they did that. And it would have been like they would have been one of the laughing stocks of the season. I think no matter who won the title, if the Lakers lose in the play-in round, that would have been the talk of the rest of the postseason and going into the offseason. And you look at some of the moves the Lakers have made with Andre Drummond, Montrezl Harrell, and Dennis Schroeder. I know he still had to find his timing, but remember, they took him out down the stretch of that game. They had to go with Wesley Matthews down there. So they had to find themselves, and I just think they realized what was really at stake. And once they did that, they got it going.
What did you make of the foul, Draymond Green? I didn't think it was a flagrant. I thought LeBron was a tad dramatic. What was your takeaway on the whole moment?
No, LeBron sold it. He's not going to admit it, but he sold it. But that's what players do. They sell it. They get the refs to go and review the play. But this is what I will say about the fouls to the head, Colin. I get a little perturbed about how officials officiate when players get hit by the head. I'm all about intent. But to the letter of the law is if you get hit in the head or around the face area, it's almost all the time a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2. And a lot of times, you know how acrobatic and athletic these players are. They'll bring the ball up and then swoop it around their head, and the player may swipe at the ball. The ball might have been there at 1 second, and the next second it's completely somewhere else, and the only thing that's in that space is a person's head, and they get hit. And a lot of times they're given that flagrant. And I don't think those should be flagrant. I don't think the Draymond play should have been a flagrant. I think they made the right call on that play. He was going for the ball, wanted to contest. LeBron James' head just got in the way.
So it's very interesting now. So you look at the West playoffs. Everybody's got a little bit of a flaw. Denver lost Jamal Murray to injury. They don't have as much offensive juice. Portland gets very reliant on their backcourt for all their offense. Dallas is young, doesn't play high-end defense. Phoenix, it's a huge they're very young, by the way, as well. Big leap to go from bad to the championship. Clippers are a team that struggles with an identity down the stretch of games. They're really, really under 5 minutes to go. They're a bad watch. They don't quite know what they are. And then the Lakers are old, beat up, but really good. Like, when you look at the West, is there going to be an upset in the West? What is kind of your sense of, I mean, we're not even talking about Utah, and they had the best record in the NBA. So kind of give me your thought about a potential upset and your thoughts going forward.
You know, Colin, there's going to be an upset, but this season, the way the teams are structured, there's not a definitive upset out there. Like, take the Denver-Portland series. I think Portland might be favored, even though Denver's the higher seed. And so even Utah, like, it's wide open. I think anybody can beat anybody in this Western Conference playoff bracket, and I think that's a good thing. I think we're going to see a lot of good basketball. Potentially, we're going to see a lot of these series go the distance. And so with that being said, that's why I'm saying it's hard for me to say an upset, because I just don't think there's a team out there head and shoulders above anybody else. And I'm not trying to disrespect Phoenix. I'm not trying to disrespect Utah. But even take Phoenix. I haven't looked at the Vegas odds. I don't know what they're saying, but is Phoenix really favored over the Los Angeles Lakers?
No.
And so, see, that's what I'm saying. I don't see real major upsets being had. I just think there's a lot of parity. And I think we have an opportunity to see a lot of lower seeds taking down higher seeds.
By the way, to Chris's point, the 3 best odds to win the NBA title had these records in the regular season: 4th best, 6th best, and 10th best. those are the favorites in the. I mean, so a lot of this stuff, and I want to address that, why the regular season and the playoffs are different. I'm going to do that on the other side. Chris Haynes, great as always. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.